Hicks. Hi, Fred. Good to see you.
Hey, how are you?
I'm okay. You
Thank you.
tell me now. I mean, okay, so there's going to be this delay in jury selection because it's not an easy process. You'd be hard-pressed to find an American in the state of Minnesota anywhere that hasn't heard about this case and could give that kind of objectivity that they often seek in jury selection. So, I mean, given the publicity this case has gotten, are you confident an appropriate jury can be found?
Well, I'm hopeful that an appropriate jury can be found. The key to this entire case really does rest upon the jury selection process. So finding a jury of peers, both for Officer Chauvin and people who are not familiar with the case, finding a jury that can be objective. And if you're the prosecution, you're trying to find a jury that's sympathetic to law enforcement. Or I'm sorry, if you're the defense, you're looking for a jury selection that's sympathetic to law enforcement. If you're on the prosecution side, you're looking for people who are more sympathetic to the victim in this case. So this is going to be very interesting. And honestly, much of the progress or perceived progress that's been made in the months since George Floyd was killed really is on the line and rests with this jury selection and this case. So there's a lot on the line here.
Right. And this is Minneapolis, of course. And it was only 2 years ago, actually, when a black police officer there, Mohammed Noor, was sentenced to 12 and a half years for accidentally shooting a woman while responding to her 911 call. How much is that case, which was huge at the time, still on the minds of Minnesotans and Americans?
Well, that case is on the minds of Minnesotans and Americans, and also the killing of Philando Castile in Minneapolis just a year or two before that is also on the minds of Americans. So this is not the first or second kind of incident, so to speak, that we've had in Minnesota. And so looking at the fact that the officers were not prosecuted in the Philando Castile situation, and then looking at the one that you just mentioned, and now looking at this is going to be a measure of where we are in terms of racial justice and inequity and equity. But this is also really going to deal a lot with where we are as a country with respect to our people treated similarly for similar offenses. So if you're a black officer and you kill a white person, or maim a white person, are you held to the same standard or given the same credit and credence that a white officer is? And then do Black lives matter as much as white lives? So these are the issues that are really at play, and at least outside to the public. Whether or not those things and how those things play out within the courtroom is a different story. But for those of us on the outside, these are the questions that we're asking ourselves, and that we as a community and country are asking ourselves.
Right. And we'll, of course, remember these are memories many Americans, wish were not part of our collective history. But in 1992, when the officers that had beaten Rodney King were found not guilty, the Los Angeles riots broke out. Is there fear looking forward that if these officers in the George Floyd case do not get what many feel would be the appropriate punishment, that a similar outcome could happen?
Oh, certainly, and not just in Minneapolis, but I think across the country and potentially across the world. I mean, you've got to remember that after the George Floyd killing last year, that launched not just the protest and Black Lives Matter movement in terms of people supporting it in the U.S. It also spread across the world, as we saw people across in Europe and Africa, and it's really on every continent standing with Black people and Black Americans and calling for justice. So I think that this is no longer, Rodney King was a domestic issue to the U.S. I think we have progressed now over the 20 plus years that George Floyd is an international case, and we'll see ripple effect and ramifications for the jury's decision across the world.
Okay, Fred Hicks joining us there from Atlanta. Thanks so much for sharing your insight. We appreciate it.